right, let's bring in Ross Feingold. He's a political risk analyst and joins us now from Taipei. Thank you so much for joining us here on the News Hour. Now, what do you make of President Tsai openly saying that we have U.S. troops training our army in Taiwan?
Well, this is not really news because it actually had been reported over a year ago. Then there was more recent media attention on this, and she's just, I wouldn't even call it confirming so much as she's just repeating something that was already publicly reported and is very well known. Simply wasn't a secret. She did indicate, though, that the numbers are relatively small. Again, that's consistent with most of the reporting. There was some dramatic reporting with extremely large numbers that really defied common sense as far as the number of Americans who are here. But we should also keep in mind that not only are there trainers, but they're very often U.S. military officials who come to Taiwan for consultations, to observe Taiwan's military exercises. And of course, Taiwan military officials frequently visit the U.S. Taiwan Air Force pilots train in the United States, and none of this is a secret. Of course, when it's in the news and it's so publicly discussed, including by President Tsai, then of course China will react with very strong statements, and they'll probably also react in the coming days with their typical, whether on the air or at sea, military exercises.
Right, and President Xi Jinping is calling for a peaceful reunification, but Taiwan is expecting military intervention at this stage. Would the U.S. interfere? Do you think Biden would stick to his word and interfere in the situation if China does decide to invade the island?
President Biden's team has already walked back from his remarks. So they've gone to some effort to emphasize that there has been no change in U.S. policy. So what does that mean as far as answering your question? Is that at least as far as a written agreement or a security treaty or a guarantee, that just doesn't exist. It's widely assumed, though, that if China did unprovoked take military action against Taiwan, that the United States and possibly Japan and maybe Australia would come to Taiwan's assistance. I think it's fair to say that there's significant, if not overwhelming, support in the United States Congress to do that. So the president, whoever it is, would face enormous pressure from the U.S. Congress to come to Taiwan's assistance. But then we get into other issues, such as the logistics of doing that, the speed at which the United States would be able to provide such assistance. So it's more than just a question of whether or not or under what circumstances the United States would do that. There are a number of other factors at play as well.
Right, and I just want to elaborate on your remarks on how China is going to move forward with this situation. How much more tougher of a stance do you think China will take from this point forward?
Over the past 5 years, since this current government of President Tsai came into office, we've seen a continued trajectory of certain actions by China. One is military exercises. Again, that's both in the air and at sea. Economic pressure, such as temporary or long-term bans on certain agricultural exports from Taiwan to China. Trying to persuade the small number of countries that still have diplomatic relations with Taiwan to end those relations, and the rhetoric. And that's not just statements from the podium by spokespersons of government agencies, but it's also in the state media and on the internet among netizens in China as well, where there's a very strong sense of nationalism, where you see people are very supportive of the government's rhetoric, and the netizens match that, and the government allows that to take place. So the combination of these actions are going to occur, and they'll occur probably with greater frequency or intensity. And that partially explains why we see other countries around the world, not just the United States, in recent weeks or months, they're willing to make statements. We saw, for example, action in the European Parliament recently. Several European countries have allowed this week the visit of Taiwan's foreign minister, for example.
Right.
So we do see other countries around the world willing to take actions at least statements to say that they don't like what China's doing, and they're at least morally supporting Taiwan. But still, when it comes to military support, it's really the United States that's as of now the one and only country that has a willingness to do that.
Right. Political risk analyst Ross Feingold, thank you so much for joining us on the program. It's always a pleasure having you.